Northern Korea, 1937. A small group of soldiers waits on a hilltop for night to fall. The country and its people have been under direct occupation by Japan for 27 years. During that time, the imperial government in Tokyo has begun taking steps to repress Korean language and culture, as well as using Korea as a staging post to advance its imperialist ambitions across East Asia. Whilst some revolutionaries remain in the country, many have been forced to operate over the border in northern China, recently incorporated into the Japanese Manchukuo puppet state. The forces of the anti-Japanese Northeastern Army and the Korean People's Revolutionary Army are on the back foot, working on a strategy to return their fight to the home country. For months, revolutionaries have been working to set up a network of secret camps across the border area, stockpiling resources and weapons, and engaging in smaller skirmishes with Japanese military and paramilitary forces. On the 27th of February 1936, the Nanhu-Tol Conference hosts local and national leaders of the anti-Japanese struggle to assess the current state of affairs, to form a united front between different revolutionary factions, and to prepare for an expansion of the revolution back onto Korean soil. All these efforts would soon come to a head in a bloody-nose attack against an unsuspecting Japanese garrison just 16 months later, centered around a relatively unknown village on the banks of the Amnok River border. A tiny Korean village that would one day become famous across the country. Pochonbo. By the mid-1930s, the forces of the anti-Japanese Revolutionary Armed Forces had grown significantly, thus requiring their separation into multiple divisions. This rapid increase in size opened up the possibility of a strike across the border into northern Korea from multiple fronts, with different divisions attacking simultaneously and others diverting attention away from the main forces. A small hut in Sogang, Manchuria, near the Korean border, served as a strategic planning site for the planned operation into Korea. It was here that Kim Il-sung, Choi-hyun, and other revolutionary leaders finalized their attack strategies. The plan was thus: the attack would be comprised of 3 arms, making use of the 2nd, 4th, and 6th divisions. The 4th division, led by Choi-hyun, would advance north towards the Musan area, distracting the Japanese military into moving their forces away from the regional center of Hyesan. The 2nd division would head south toward the Korean border to act as a supporting force, whilst the 6th division marched on the city of Hyesan to harass the enemy garrisons that were still stationed in the city. The plan was not to take territory, but to make a symbolic push into Korean territory for the first time, thus bringing the revolution back to the homeland and winning a great propaganda victory amongst the Koreans still living on the peninsula. Choi-hyun's 4th division, heading north, only encountered light resistance from Japanese paramilitaries and private militias loyal to the occupation. However, they successfully made it to the Korean border near Pulgunbawi. As the 4th division marched onwards, however, news arrived to the headquarters that a large contingent of Japanese forces were heading north towards the Musan area to meet them. Whilst this had been anticipated, the speed of their movement was faster than expected. However, continuing with the plan, the 2nd division headed south, whilst Kim Il-sung and the 6th division made their way towards the border, eventually arriving at Jiangge, their final staging post for the assault against Hyesan. Back up north, Choi Hyun launched his attack against the Japanese on the town of Bulgunbawi, before disappearing quickly back across the border. His division latterly attacked the No. 7 lumberyard, which was nearby, before once again retreating back to the river and making their way towards Pegebong, or Pege Hill, to escape the encroaching Japanese forces that were hot on their tail. At this point, Choi's division was at risk of encirclement by the Japanese, and news of this had reached Kim Il-sung as he prepared for the assault. Although Choi had not asked for help and was confident in his ability to extricate himself from the situation, Kim Il-sung consulted his officers on whether to change the plan in order to relieve the 4th Division. The problem was, a full diversion to relieve the 4th would undermine the overall goal of launching their bloody-nose strike against the Japanese. However, failing to support Choi could result in the loss of a significant chunk of manpower of the Korean People's Revolutionary Army. Kim Il-sung decided to divert his attack. Instead of launching an assault on Hyesan, he would instead move the target to a midpoint between Hyesan and Pegebong. This way, he could still launch an attack onto Korean soil, but now, the proximity of the attack to the advancing Japanese would inspire fear that they themselves were at risk of being encircled by the Korean forces, forcing them to pull back and giving Choi's division a chance to escape. A glance at a map will show you that the midpoint between Hyesan and Pegebong is the village of Pochonbo. The 6th Division began marching towards the Amnok River, ever cautious of the Japanese military. The entire northern region of Korea was peppered with police and Japanese gendarmerie, especially in Hyesan. The city was home to a special border guard force, tasked with policing the Amnok River against encroachment by any anti-Japanese guerrillas. Under the command of Okawa Soichi, this force posed the biggest risk of discovery in the lead-up to the assault. However, they were not discovered, and the 6th Division arrived at Konjang Hill, overlooking the village, at 10 p.m. on the 3rd of June 1937. They set up camp overnight and spent the following day assessing battle plans and awaiting nightfall. That evening, the division descended the hill, splitting into small groups and entering the village undetected. Kim Il-sung set up his forward operating base beneath a poplar tree, less than 100 meters from the village police station. As darkness fell, he fired a single shot into the air at 10 p.m. sharp to signal to his troops to begin their assault. Everything I had ever wanted to say to my fellow countrymen back in the homeland for over 10 years was packed into that one shot, reverberating through the street that night. The main force of the assault was aimed at the police station. However, other administrative buildings, such as the county post office, fire hall, and forestry offices, were attacked and set alight as the fighters began shouting revolutionary slogans and passing out handpapers to the locals, so as to identify themselves with the revolution. As the Japanese forces in the village were forced onto the back foot, Kim Il-sung made a speech in the heart of the village, in a square next to the burning sub-county post office. As his speech concluded, the unit disappeared into the night and headed back across the Amnok River to the relative safety of Manchuria. The legacy of Pochonbo in the DPRK really can't be overstated. Although it wasn't a decisive strategic victory, the battle was a largely symbolic strike, representing the return of the revolution to the Korean homeland, and the fervent will of the anti-Japanese fighters to liberate the country from Japanese rule. The battle has since given its name to one of the country's most famous musical groups, and today, the village itself is home to a grand monument to the battle, with many notable locations marked with plaques and commemorative stones. The nearby city of Hyesan, today the capital of Myeonggang province and the original target for the assault, is now home to a huge monument depicting Kim Il-sung leading his division towards Pochonbo under a large red granite flag, representing the Korean Revolution. Similarly, paintings of the exploits of the 6th Division have been used on stamps and displayed across the country. Local work units, pioneer groups, and divisions of the modern Korean People's Army make regular visits to the northern region, to visit both the Pochonbo battle site as well as other revolutionary sites in the region, as Pochonbo opened the door for future incursions into northern Korea, culminating in the return of the revolutionaries to Pyongyang after 20 years in August 1945. Thank you so much for watching this edition of DPRK Deep Dive, my hopefully sporadic series looking into more niche individual topics related to the DPRK. If you want to check out the first video of this series, where I looked into the political theses which formed the modern system of agriculture in the country, you can find a link to that in the description. I also want to say, I wouldn't be able to make videos for DPRK Explained, or devote the time and resources to the channel without my supporters on Patreon. So if you have a moment, please check it out, linked in the description. I also run a DPRK Explained music channel, where I upload the songs and music I use in these videos. So, if you've been inspired to listen to the Pochonbo electronic ensemble by this video, you can find that channel linked in the description, along with a playlist with all the Korean music from this video. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.